All right, thanks, guys. The Niners take on the Cardinals. That's going to be an 8:20 Eastern kickoff this Thursday night. San Francisco's -10. Total's at 43. We did see a 2-point move towards San Francisco, movement downward on the total. The Niners open -8 up to -10. Total open 44 down to 43. 66% of the consensus are leaning towards San Francisco. 63% are leaning toward the over. And right now, Arizona is plus 405 on the money line. Now, Arizona is just 3-4-1 overall for the year. Last place in the NFC West. A little bit banged up as well, especially at that running back position. David Johnson's out. Kenyon Drake is questionable. He was just acquired. Chase Edmonds doubtful. Zach Allen, the defensive end on the other side of the ball, questionable with a shoulder injury. This Arizona squad, 22nd in time of possession, 28th in points allowed. Now San Francisco on the other side, a little bit different story here. Second in rushing, second in time of possession, 11th in road scoring. They are 7-0 straight up on the year, 5-2 against the number. Of course, Jimmy G, he's completing 69.8% of his passes, 1,489 yards on the year, 9 touchdown passes. Rushing has been very good for San Francisco as well, although their backs are a little bit banged up as well. Now, Matt Breida has 446 yards on the year. He's questionable for Thursday's game. Tevin Coleman, 5 touchdowns for him. Raheem Mostert, he's averaging 44 yards per game himself. He might not play Thursday as well, but, you know, if they get the whole slew of guys in there in the backfield, they could potentially do some damage. That's been the story this year. Great rushing team. Now, San Francisco has covers over Carolina, the Rams, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, and believe it or not, the 49ers were underdogs in 3 of those covers. Now, total-wise, San Fran is 5-2 to the under. I got to mention one more guy, Eric Armstead. 5.5 sacks for him. D Ford, 4.5 sacks for him. And, of course, that could be contributing to those unders. Once again, San Fran 5-2 to the under on the year. They're also 3-1 to the under on the road. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, couple of unders for them in their last 2 games. And they scored just 9 points versus New Orleans. So with all that in mind, I'm going to lean San Francisco -10 and the under 43 in that game. All right, next matchup, Texans taking on the Jags. Now, that's an early morning game, 9:30 a.m. Eastern start time, and that's going to be at Wembley Stadium across the pond. Pretty evenly matched up when it comes to the lines. Houston's -1.5, totals 46 and a hook. Houston did open -3. We saw a 1.5-point fade of the Texans. We also saw movement downward on the total. The Texans open -3, down to -1.5. Total open 47, down to 46 and a hook. 58% of the consensus are leaning Houston. 53% shaded toward the under. Right now, Jacksonville is plus 105 on the money line. A little bit banged up are these Jags. You know, we're at the part of the season where a lot of teams are banged up. But anyway, the players that are banged up here for Jacksonville: Najee Good, questionable. Dede Westbrook, Leon Jacobs, and Quincy Williams. They're all listed as questionable for Sunday's game. Houston on the other side, 5-3 straight up. They successfully covered the number in 2 out of their last 4, and they are 3-1 against the spread away from home. Now, Deshaun, he's completing 69.3% of his passes. He's thrown for over 2,200 yards. He's got 16 touchdowns, 5 picks, 75.8 QBR. Carlos Hyde, 544 yards on the ground, 68 yards a game he's averaging. Of course, DeAndre Hopkins, he's been an absolute beast. 60 catches, 617, 3 touchdowns, 77 yards a game. Will Fuller, he's awesome as well. 450 yards, 3 touchdowns, 64 yards a game. Now, Houston did lose J.J. Watt for the year. They are still led by Zach Cunningham, who has 61 tackles on the season. Whitney Merciless, 5.5 sacks. And when it comes to the total, Houston is 4-3 to the under in their last 7. Jaguars 2-1 to the under in their last 3. I'm going to purchase the 0.5 point, buy it down, and take Houston -1 and the under 46.5 in that game. Next matchup, Redskins taking on the Bills. That's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Buffalo. The Bills are minus 9.5, total 36.5. Not a whole lot of movement on that total. We did see a half a point fade of Buffalo in the early wagering. The Bills open 10, down to 9.5, totals 36 and a hook. 51% are leaning Washington, 59% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Redskins are plus 370 on the money line. The Skins are also just 1-7 straight up on the year, 3-5 against the number. They failed to cover over the likes of Miami, the Giants, and the Bears. Washington has lost 3 out of 4 games away from home. They are amongst the worst in road scoring in the NFL, and they're also amongst the worst in road rushing. Now, when it comes to this Redskins squad, we got a whole slew of guys on this injury report. We got Davis, Keenum, Thompson, Everett, Dunbar, Clemens, Nicholson, Reeves, and Martin all listed as questionable for Sunday's action. Meanwhile, the Bills on the other side, they hit hard, man. They got a top-ranked defense. They're 5-2 straight up, 4-3 against the number. They've had successful covers over New England and Tennessee. And, of course, that defense is led by Tremaine Edmonds, who's got 52 tackles. Phillips has 5 sacks, White with 3 interceptions. When it comes to this total, Buffalo's 5-2 to the under for the year. Washington 5-3 to the under themselves, 3-1 to the under away from home. I'm going to lean Buffalo minus 9 after buying the hook, and the under 36.5 in that game. And before we go ahead and move on, I just want to take a quick timeout and welcome you to the show. Got some lines and personal leans out for NFL Week 9. But before we go ahead and dive into some more of that, I just want to quickly remind you to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage. We do premium selections and plays on that website beginning at just $1.99 per month. We have a bunch of different memberships, tiers, and packages that you can subscribe to. You can also access my current record for absolutely free right on the homepage. That is patreon.com/BrockPage. Link for that site is in the description section below. All right, guys, let's go ahead and dive back into some more lines of personal leans. All starts Eastern Standard Time. And on deck, we've got the Vikings taking on the Chiefs. And that's going to be a 1 o'clock kickoff in Kansas City. Now, this game's currently off the board. We don't have any lines for this game at the moment. And, of course, we're waiting on the status of Patrick Mahomes. If you have any updates, please let us know in the comment section below. But as of right now, this game currently off the board. But regardless of that, Kansas City just 4-4 against the number overall for the year. They're 1-3 straight up at Arrowhead this year. And they failed to cover in 3 out of those 4 games. Now, granted, one of those games was with the backup. But they do have some guys on this injury report as well. We have Clark, Fuller, Jones, Wiley, and of course Patty Mahomes, all listed as questionable for Sunday's action. KC's dropped 3 out of their last 4 games, straight up. And they gave up 31 points in 2 out of those last 3. Now, Minnesota on the other side really started to pick it up after Kirk Cousins kind of got called out there by his teammates and more specifically his receivers. But anyway, Minnesota 6-2 straight up, looking like a top contender in the NFC. Once again, 6-2 straight up on the year, 5-3 against a number. They've also successfully covered that number in 3 out of their last 4. They're led by Kirk Cousins, who's completing 72.1% of his passes. He's just 3 yards shy of 2,000 for the year. He's averaging 254 yards passing a game. He's got 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So pretty solid numbers out of Cousins. Not doing too much, not putting up life-changing numbers, but doing enough to get the W and manage the game and not make too many mistakes. Now, Dalvin Cook has been awesome this year. 823 yards on the ground, 9 touchdowns. He's averaging 103 yards a game and 5.3 yards per carry. Stephon Diggs, 706 yards on the year, 37 catches, nearly 20 yards per catch on average, 4 touchdowns, averaging 88 receiving yards per game. Adam Thielen, 6 touchdowns on the year, and actually Dalvin Cook has 334 yards after the catch. We call that yak. So anyway, defensively, Minnesota's been solid there as well. They've been awesome on defense. They're led by Eric Kendricks, who has 68 tackles on the year, 47 of them solo. Danielle Hunter, nobody's talking about him. 8 sacks for Hunter. Everson Griffin, 4.5 sacks for him as well. And Anthony Harris, the safety, 3 interceptions for him. Minnesota, winners in their last 4 straight. They're in second place in the NFC North, just one game back of Green Bay. Minnesota has marquee covers over the likes of Detroit, Philadelphia, and Oakland, and they've successfully covered the number in their last 5 games, taking on a member of the AFC West. So with all that in mind, once again, we don't have a line, we don't have a number, but Patty Mahomes or not, I think Minnesota should get the job done. So I'm going to lean Minnesota winning this one outright for some money line cash. All right, next game, Jets, Dolphins. Do I really have to cap this one? That's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Miami. The Jets are minus 3.5, totals at 41, and we saw a 3-point fade of New York in the early wagering. They actually opened 6.5 all the way down to 3.5. Totals 41. 61% are leaning Jets. 53% shaded toward the over. Right now the Dolphins are plus 140 on the money line. I really can't believe I'm going to vouch for these guys. But anyway, let's go ahead and try to stumble through. Miami, 6-4 straight up in their last 10 head-to-head matchups with the Jets. They're led by Preston Williams, who has 350 yards, 356 yards receiving, 1 touchdown for him. They're also led by Devontae Parker with 24 catches for 343 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Taco Charlton, yeah, he's still in the NFL. He's got 4 sacks for the Dolphins. Now this part's going to be easy, trashing the Jets. All right, the Jets are just 1-6 straight up on the year, 2-5 against the number, winless away from home, and they failed to cover in 2 out of their 3 games on the road. Now, the Jets scored over 16 points just once this year. That was against Dallas. They're at the bottom of the barrel in points allowed. Just teams scoring all over them. When it comes to the total, the Jets are 2-1 to the over on the road. They give up a ton of points. I don't know what to tell you. Miami, they give up a ton of points as well. They gave up the most points in the NFL. So with all that said and done, well, I'm going to purchase the 0.5 point. I'm going to buy it up and take the Dolphins plus 4 and the over 41 in that game. All right, next matchup. It is going to be Titans taking on the Panthers. And that's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Charlotte. Now, Carolina's minus 4, totals 41.5. We saw a 0.5 point fade of Carolina in the early wagering. I'm not real surprised about that. We did see movement upward on the total as well. The Panthers open 4.5 down to minus 4. Total open 40 up to 41 and a hook. 65% are leaning Panthers. 64% shaded toward the over. Right now the Titans are plus 180 on the money line. This Carolina defense, I don't know what happened to them. They've allowed 51, 27, and 26 points respectively in each of their last 3 straight. They're just 1-2 straight up in their last trio of ball games. They failed to cover in 2 out of their last 3 at home. They're just 1-5 straight up in their last 6 in Charlotte. If you're into historical trends, of course, that dates back to last year. So that home base, really not seeing a whole lot of wins out of their home team. Now, this Carolina defense, they're amongst the highest in time of possession in number of plays. So really just can't stay off the field. They're getting worn down, and other teams are just running a whole lot of plays against them. And their offense, can't seem to get on the field. Now, Tennessee on the other side, they are 4-4 straight up on the year. They're 4-4 against the spread, but they are ranked in the better half of offensive time of possession in the NFL. So this could bode potentially problematic for Carolina. Now Tennessee 6-0 straight, 6-0 straight up in their last 6, taking on the NFC. So of course that's a historical trend there. They're also 5-1 against the spread in their last 6, taking on the NFC South. This Tennessee defense, they're 5th in points allowed on the road, and they have not given up more than 23 points at all this year in a game. So very good defensively. As a matter of fact, they're led by Rashaan Evans, who has 67 tackles, 44 of them solo. Logan Ryan, what a year. 51 tackles from that cornerback spot, 3.5 sacks, 3 picks, and 3 forced fumbles. Kevin Byard having a great year from that safety position as well. 32 solo tackles and 3 picks for him. We do have a couple injuries for the Titans. Walker, Saffold, Milton, Jackson, and Finch are listed as questionable, so be on the lookout for them. Meanwhile, Carolina on the other side, Miller and Little listed as questionable for them. Now, total-wise, Carolina 5-2 to the over on the year, 2-1 to the over at home, Tennessee 2-0 to the over in their last couple of games. I'm going to lean toward the road dog in this one. Give me the Titans +4 and the over 41.5 in that game. Next matchup, we have the Bears taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. And that is going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff at Lincoln Financial Field in South Philly. Now, the Eagles are -5. Total's at 43. We're seeing pretty good movement in this one. We saw a 2-point move toward Philadelphia. We saw a 2-point move downward on the total. The Eagles open 3 up to -5. Total open 45 down to 43. 61% are leaning Eagles, 51% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Bears are +195 on the money line. Now, the Bears, kicking woes. I understand that. You know, we're seeing that. I mean, they're just, it's a bad situation when it comes to special teams. But they are 2-1 straight up away from home this year. They're relatively healthy. They still have that stingy defense. Their defense is still top-notch. And for the exception of the New Orleans and Oakland game, Chicago held their opponents to 17 points or less in all of their games. So they can still play ball. They can still be in these games. Obviously, Trubisky is a nightmare, but they have had marquee covers over the likes of Minnesota and Washington. And guys, their offense put up 21 points or more in 3 out of their last 5 games. 21 points is enough to win with this Bears defense. But like I said, Trubisky, he's been awful. He's been terrible. Could we see Chase Daniel get the start? I'm not sure. I don't know if that was confirmed yet or not. Been on the move today, so I haven't seen if that was confirmed or not. But let me know in the comments section below. I know that they were talking, could be Chase Daniel, could be Mitch Trubisky. But let me know in the comments section. As of now, as far as I know, is Trubisky going to get the start. But anyway, he's got a hell of a receiver. Allen Robinson is great. He's got 526 yards, 3 touchdowns. If you watch this guy play, I mean, the quality of these catches and the athleticism is unreal, and the guy can move. Tarek Cohen, 32 catches out of the backfield. And, of course, when it comes to this defense, you got to mention Khalil Mack. 5.5 sacks, 27 tackles for him. Nick Williams, 4 sacks for him out of that defensive tackle spot. And Danny Trevathan's been all over the field. 61 tackles, 47 solo. The man just crushes your soul when he lays the wood to you. Fuller has 3 picks from that cornerback position as well. Now, Philly on the other side, they failed to cover in 5 out of their last 6 matchups with a member of the NFC. They're also just 1-2 ATS at the link. They've actually really struggled to cover at the link over the past couple of seasons. They're 25th in points allowed, 27th in passing yards allowed. They have arguably the worst secondary in the NFL. A lot of people have claimed that. They have the absolute worst secondary in the league. So we'll find out this Sunday. But we do have a slew of injuries for Philadelphia. Peters, Sproles, Deshaun, and Nigel Bradham, Avonte Maddox, and Miles Sanders all listed as questionable for Sunday's action. Timmy Jernigan is still out with a foot, and Kamu Grugier-Hill is out indefinitely with a knee. I think it was an MCL. But anyway, total-wise, Philly 2-1 to the over at home. Chicago 2-1 to the over on the road. One thing you guys want to think about. I know that when you see these two teams, you immediately think defense and under. Don't forget, Chicago's defense does have the ability to score points. Eagles should win this one, but I'm going to lean Chicago +5, getting the job done against the number, and the over 43 in that game. All right, next matchup, Colts, Steelers, 1 o'clock Pittsburgh. The Colts are -1. This one looks pretty tight. Total's at 42.5. No movement on that spread. We're seeing pretty good two-way action there. We did see movement downward on the total. So once again, the Colts open and remain -1. Total open 43.5 down to 42 and a hook. 65% are leaning Colts, 60% shaded toward the over. Right now, Pittsburgh is +102 on the money line. They're also just 3-4 straight up on the year, 3-4 against the number. They failed to cover in 3 out of their 4 games at Heinz Field this year. They're ranked 28th in passing, no real surprises there. They've also failed to cover in 2 out of their last 3 ball games. James Conner and Samuels and Gilbert are all listed as questionable, and Chicolo is running away from the police right now. Indianapolis, 5-2 straight up on the road. 5-2 straight up overall for the year, 5-2 against the number. They've won and covered over the likes of Houston and Kansas City. They are perfect, 3-0 against the number when traveling this year. Jacoby Brissett, what can I say? He's completing 64.5% of his passes. He's just shy of 1,600 yards for the year, 14 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions. Those are good numbers there. Those are solid, efficient numbers. Those will get the job done, especially when you have this defense led by Darius Leonard. But anyway, Marlon Mack, grinding it out, man. 590 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns. He's averaging 84 yards a game. And T.Y. Hilton, he's got 5 touchdown catches on the year. Darius Leonard, like I said, 38 tackles, 2 sacks for him. When it comes to this total, Indianapolis is 2-1 to the under on the road. Pittsburgh 5-2 to the under for this season. I'm going to lean Colts -1 and the under 42.5 in that game. Next matchup, Bucks, Seahawks. 405 Seattle. The Seahawks are -6. Total's 51. We saw a half a point move towards Seattle and movement downward on the total. The Seahawks open 5.5 up to 6. Total open 53.5 down to 51. 64% are leaning Seattle. 53% shaded toward the over. Right now the Bucks are plus 225 on the money line. Tampa Bay is just 2-5 straight up on the year, and they failed to cover in 5 out of those 7 games. We have Howard, Kappa, and Sitchie listed as questionable. Tampa Bay, they lost their last 3 straight games. Their defense allowed 32 points per contest on average in those 3 games, and they are amongst the worst defenses in the NFL, arguably the worst. Seattle on the other side, 6-2 straight up overall. Winners in 4 out of their last 5. Russell Wilson, looking like Russell Wilson. He's completing 68.4% of his passes, 2,100 yards, a little bit over that. He's averaging 287 passing yards a game, 17 touchdowns, 1 interception, 79.7 QBR. Chris Carson getting it done on the ground, kind of a silent hero here. 659 yards on the ground, 4.1 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. And Tyler Lockett, 615 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns for him. Seattle 12-6 straight up in their last 18 games played in November, if you're into historical trends. Now, total-wise, Seattle 4-3 to the over in their last 7. Tampa Bay 5-2 to the over for the season. 75% to the over away from home. Give me the Seahawks -6 in the over 51 in that game. Next matchup, Lions, Raiders, 405 Oakland. The Raiders are 2.5, total 50 and a hook. Not a whole lot of movement in this one. We did see just a little bit of a half a point move downward on the total. But once again, Oakland is -2.5, total open 51 down to 50 and a hook. 55% are leaning Detroit, 61% shaded toward the over. Right now the Lions are plus 115 on the money line. Detroit 3-3-1 straight up on the year, 4-3 against the spread. They covered over the likes of Green Bay, Kansas City, and Philadelphia. Detroit also has a top 10. They're amongst the top 10 in passing yards per game. They're also 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 matchups with a member of the AFC Conference. Once again, there's a nice historical trend for you. Of course, they're led by Matthew Stafford. He's completing 64% of his passes, just shy of 2,100 yards, 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 74.4 QBR. Kenny Golladay getting it done receiving-wise, 508 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns. He's actually averaging 16.4 yards per reception. And, of course, Marvin Jones. You know what you're going to get with him. Just a solid receiver year in and year out. 409 yards, 5 touchdowns, 12.0 yards per catch for him. Now, Oakland on the other side, 3-4 straight up on the year. Hudson and Morrow listed as questionable for those looking at the injury report. Now, their defense has given up 30 points per contest in their last 3 on average. And when it comes to the total, believe it or not, Oakland's 2-1 to the under at home. And I think this total might be set a little bit too high. It's curiously high, in my opinion. So, with all that said and done, I'm going to buy the hook, purchase it up, and take Detroit +3 and the under 50.5 in that game. Next matchup, Browns, Broncos, 425 Denver. The Browns are -3. Total is at 39. We've seen all kinds of movement in this game. Obviously, Flacco with the fluke neck spasms. But anyway, we saw a flip of the lines in this one. Cleveland open +1, now -3. Total open 43, all the way down to 39. 57% are leaning Cleveland, 56% shaded toward the under. Right now, Denver's plus 155 on the money line. The Broncos are just 2-6 straight up on the year. They failed to cover in 3 out of their last 6 games. They failed to cover with the likes of Jacksonville, Green Bay, and Oakland, for those who are curious. They are in the bottom 5 of scoring. They really struggle moving the ball, and they're just 4-8 against the number in their last dozen, dating back to last season. So not a whole lot of covers for Denver backers within the past year. But anyway, Cleveland on the other side, believe it or not, despite their struggles, they're still ranking in the top 10 for yards per play on average. They're also ranking in the top 10 in pass yards allowed per game. A couple more things about Cleveland. They did cover against Baltimore and the Jets, and they rank in the top 5 in offensive yards per play on the road. They're led by Nick Chubb, 738 yards per game, 738 yards for the season, 5.5 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns on the year. And of course, Landry's got 504 receiving yards. Schobert, 73 tackles on that defensive side of things. And Myles Garrett, 10 sacks on the year for Cleveland. Now, total-wise, Cleveland is 4-3 to the under for the year, 75% to the under on the road. Denver on the other side, 6-2 to the under, and also 3-1 to the under at home. I'm going to lean Cleveland -3 and the under 39 in that game. Next matchup, Packers, Chargers, 425 Los Angeles. The Packers are -3.5, totals at 47. We saw a half a point fade of Green Bay and movement upward on the total. The Packers open -4, down to -3.5. Total open 46, up to 47. 67% are leaning Green Bay, 75% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Chargers are plus 170 on the money line. They're also just 3-5 straight up on the year, 2-6 against the spread. They've dropped 3 out of their last 4 at home, and they failed to cover at home this year. 0-4 against the spread in the friendly confines, or not so friendly confines. The Chargers, we're looking at Bain, Jones, and Adderley, all listed as questionable. Meanwhile, the Packers on the other side, first place in the NFC North, really looking kind of like the front runner in the NFC. They're 7-1 straight up, 6-2 against the number. They successfully covered the number against the likes of Kansas City, Dallas, and Minnesota. Aaron Rodgers, he's completing 65.4% of his passes, 2,300 yards, slightly above that. He's also averaging 303 yards a game, 16 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, one of his favorite targets, 420 yards on the year, 19.1 yards per reception, 2 touchdowns. And Jones out of the backfield, along with Jimmy Graham, both have 3 receiving touchdowns each. Now, Green Bay, 3-0 straight up on the road, 3-0 against the spread in that same category. They're also 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 games, taking on the AFC, if you're into historical trends. Green Bay, top 10 points allowed on the road. That defense really a lot better this year than it was last year. But anyway, total-wise, we're looking at a Chargers team on the other side who is 6-2 to the under for the year, 75% to the under at home. I'm going to purchase the half a point, buy it down, and take Green Bay -3 and the under 47 in that game. All right, next matchup. It is going to be Sunday night primetime, talking about the Patriots taking on the Ravens, 8:20 Baltimore. The Patriots are -3.5, total 45. We did see a pretty significant fade of New England in the early wagering. We also saw movement downward on the total. Once again, New England is -3.5, total open 46.5, down to 45. 58% are leaning Patriots, 56% shaded toward the over. Right now, Baltimore's plus 165 for an outright win. Baltimore's also just 2-5 against the spread overall for the year. They failed to cover in 3 games at home this year, and they're just 1-5 against the number in their last 6. Now, the Pats on the other side, undefeated still, 8-0 straight up, 6-2 against the number. Obviously, first place in the AFC East, and they're covering 75% of their games away from home. Tom Brady, he's completing 64% of his passes. He's over 2,200 yards for the year, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Sony Michel, 464 yards on the ground, 6 touchdowns. Julian Edelman, 574 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. And James White, 358 yards receiving out of the backfield. Philip Dorsett has 4 receiving touchdowns on the year, by the way. Now, this New England defense has been awesome, and they're led by Jamie Collins, who has 6 sacks, and Kyle Van Noy, who has 4.5 sacks. Now, Jamie Collins and Gilmore have 3 interceptions apiece. Devin McCourty leads the charge with 5 interceptions on the year. And Harmon has 4 picks himself. Now, total-wise, New England 6-2 to the under, 4-0 to the under away from home. I'm going to buy the hook, slide it down, take the Patriots -3 and the under 45 in that game. And I'm going to slide on into my next and final matchup for the show. It is going to be Cowboys-Giants, 8:15 New York. The Cowboys are -7 on the road. Total's at 48. Saw a 2-point fade of Dallas and movement upward on the total. The Cowboys open 9, down to 7. Total open 47, up to 48. 55% are leaning Dallas, 56% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Giants are plus 275 on the money line. Dallas on the other side, 4-3 straight up on the year, 4-3 against the number. Successful covers over Philadelphia and this very New York Giants squad the first time around. Now, the G-Men 0-4 straight up in their last 4 games. Nice little 4-game losing streak for them. They're just 2-6 overall for the year, 3-5 against the number. They failed to cover in 3 out of their 4 games at the Meadowlands, MetLife Stadium. Now, Shepard and Ballantyne are listed as questionable for the G-Men. When it comes to the total, the Giants are 4-0 to the under at home. I'm going to lean Dallas -7 and the under 48 in that game. All right, let's go ahead and slide into our quick pick recap brought to you by patreon.com/BrockPage. I got the Cowboys -7, under 48. Patriots -3, under 45. Green Bay -3, under 47. Cleveland -3, under 39. Seattle -6, over 51. Detroit +3, under 50.5. Buffalo -9, under 36 and a hook. Tennessee +4, over 41.5. Miami +4, over 41. Minnesota winning their game outright for some money line cash. The Colts -1, under 42.5. Chicago +5, over 43. Houston -1, under 46.5. 49ers -10, under 43. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Once again, don't forget to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage. We do daily plays on that website. They are premium plays, premium personal selections, and they begin at just $1.99 per month. We also have plenty of different memberships, tiers, and packages that you can subscribe to. You can also access my current record for free right on the homepage. Link for that site is in the description section below. That is patreon.com/BrockPage. But most importantly, guys, I got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. Happy Wednesday to you. Best of luck to you. And don't forget to check me out at patreon.com/BrockPage.